America is isolated from the world, both in thought and conduct, size, oceans. And in that isolation, you know, it's heavily involved in what's going on inside America. And so I enjoyed that. But this whole country is fixed on the idea of sports, is fixed on the idea of distractions and human titillation, if you will, or whatever it may be. And they're not looking at the large pictures, and they've become insulated against the realities of the world. Even our poor people in the U.S. would be wealthy in any other part of the world. I mean, poor people in America have television sets. That's not the way it is in the rest of the world. And we're just maybe 1/5 of the population of the whole world, and yet we're using 1/4 of all the resources. Scientists of the world concerning environment and interest said that in 1950 there was 2.5 billion people in the world. 2000 there were 6 billion. So in that short time, we almost doubled, tripled the population of the world. That's not sustainable. That is not sustainable. You can't do that. But we are. And that's a reality. Who knows that? Who thinks about that? So there's a great imbalance. There's a great imbalance of humanity on this earth, and the natural laws don't abide that. They don't abide. And there's law, and the best thing you can do is keep the balance. So we should be paying real attention to that. And just the quality of life that comes from all the beings that are here they'll be denied our grandchildren. And then when they lose that, then they lose even better perspective of how to survive. So we're destroying their well-being. We're really destroying the efforts that they can put forward if they have the respect and knowledge. And asked him what was his prognosis, and he said, it's bad. We'll be lucky to be here in 100 years, and maybe sooner. And he said also that people are going to have to adapt to the changes, but the changes are going to come so fast that you won't be able to adapt. The world needs good leaders and good leadership. So I think what's happening now is clearly an indication of where we are. It's a international, universal action now taken by these huge systemic changes. The Gulf Stream is slowing down in the Atlantic Ocean. And it doesn't leave you much hope. So I think the American population have to really think about leadership now. Got to change leadership, and you got to get good leadership. And leadership has to be responsive to the welfare of the people, not to the welfare of interest. And those are simple things, but they're very difficult. I think the democratic process in America has been co-opted now by corporations and big money. And it's hard to even reach the ear of your representative for the common person. So the common person feels helpless. But they aren't, if they understand. And in this idea of democracy, which I must say, the Iroquois had a lot to do with, If you read the discussion by Ben Franklin, he'll tell you that he was very, very impressed with this idea of democracy and leadership by agreement and consent, and the ability to set up leaders and remove them. That was told to us. We were told two things. They said that will tell you what the condition of the earth will be when the earth is deteriorating. One will be the acceleration of the winds, and the other will be how people treat their children. And we see, it's a comment on both the natural world and a comment on human population. So how people are treating the children today are very bad. I think old age gives you 1 perspective, and that's the older you get, the more you realize how little you know and how much more there is to know. And we'll simply make another. I said, oh, wow, that's good news. I said, but what about, is anything going to happen? And they said, well, there's going to be a period of enlightenment. I said, a period of enlightenment. And I said, what is that? And I wondered about it. And what is enlightenment? Enlightenment is when you suddenly perceive something and you see it for what it is and you understand it and it's clear. And I thought, it's probably could be like this. And one of the men happens to see a fin, a very large proportion, bearing down on him. Now that would be a period of enlightenment. He would see everything clearly. And hard to say what you would think about in a time like that. I should have stayed home. I should have never went swimming. I shoulda, woulda, coulda. It's an old saying, isn't it? And the peacemaker said to the assembled chiefs that he had taken all this time to raise and instruct and give, the clans and the nations and the responsibilities of the women, responsibilities of the men, responsibilities of the people, which is by far the largest responsibility. And he said that when you sit and you counsel for the welfare of the people, think not of yourself, nor of your family, or even your generation. He said, but make your decisions on behalf of the seventh generation coming, so they may enjoy what you have today. So it's an instruction of responsibility. It was a very visionary instruction. The Inquisition, all going on, 1492, the Pope's declaration that we're flora and fauna, that we have no right of title to this land, established into U.S. federal law. Obviously, they had a chance. Second big chance was when they formed the United States, and we were working with them in that direction. Continental Congress came to us and said, will you fight with us against the King of England? And our chief said to him, that's your father. We know your father. We've worked with your father. We love your father. We know you. We've worked with you, and we love you as well. So we see this as a fight between father and son. So we think it wouldn't be proper to join in this family fight. The Continental Congress representatives, and they were meeting upstate New York then, and they said, well, good. They said, because that was our second request. If you were not going to fight with us, you wouldn't fight against us. And we said, that's what we agree, we think. And the Six Nations at that time was merely trying to survive these huge elements of power from France and from England and from Spain. And these, whipsawing right across what is now New York. We were right in the middle of this thing. And using the best of our ability to survive. And so we took that position. And George Morgan, who was the one speaking, said, that's good. I agree with that. And so he went back to the Continental Congress, and John Hancock, first president of the Continental Congress, commissioned a wampum belt to be made and to verify this, sanction this, and sanctify it. And this belt was made. He commissioned it, and they made it. They were dealing in our style of government, wampum. And the meeting was held at Fort Pitt, 1776, and that was the first peace meeting between the new United States and the Six Nations. And even at that time, Six Nations asked them, where's your flag? And they realized they really didn't have a flag. And the first flags that they flew, if you remember, was a pine tree. It was a pine tree with an eagle on top. And so they took a lot from us. They took a whole lot. government by consent, bicameral, 2 houses, elder brothers, younger brothers, council fires, the great fires they called themselves, the 13 fires, as we called ourselves, the 6 fires. Oh, we were really, really involved. Our chiefs were up and down the whole East Coast, almost every event, died on the road, trying hard to survive and keep the peace. And I think at that time, the opportunity was there. And then when they made the Constitution, another great opportunity, but they wouldn't give up slavery. They would not give up slavery, and the women were nowhere to be seen. And we said, well, how can you ignore 50% of the population? Not only that, but with so much, dependent upon them. Well, that wasn't their style. And there was a kind of a reverting back to European thinking. And I think that was a failed point there in history. And then they began to consolidate, and it worked up to the point when they called the Manifest Destiny about 1843, I think, first time that was mentioned. Manifest Destiny. We are, God has destined us to be the leaders. And I think it's that kind of thinking that has been driving this country. And I think that these wars that we're engrossed in right now are nothing but an extension of that kind of thinking, and very, very ill-timed and ill-conceived, and has created such turmoil across the world. We have to have peace. We have to have a better understanding of who we are, and there has to be a great sharing. So how can you expect a country,